I think we have a similar situation both in Israel and in Ukraine, in fact, because what we see in Israel is that people start to realize that the strategy that was implemented from the 8th of October 2023 is failing. Basically, and the IDF spokesman a few weeks ago acknowledged that it is impossible to win over the Hamas. The operation on the ground show that the command and control structure of the Hamas is fully operational. The operations that are conducted by the Palestinians, not just by the Hamas, by the way, because it's also important to remind people that these all the operation, including the one on the 7th of October, was in fact conducted by a joint operation room where obviously the Hamas is the leading faction, but you have about 20 factions operating within this joint operation room. And that means that among those 20 or so factions that are operating in the Gaza Strip, you need to have a coordination, and the coordination requires quite extensive command and control capabilities. And what you see and what we see since October is that this coordination and the cooperation between a Palestinian faction continues to work unabated, meaning that the Israelis have maybe killed some Hamas fighters, but they haven't been able to disrupt the command and control lines. And we see, if we observe complex um, ambush operation, for instance, against Israeli forces in the Gaza Strip. When I say complex, that means that these are ambushes that are in different uh, 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 compartment of terrain, meaning they can be underground, both at the same time, both underground and above ground. They involve different factions at the same time, but operating from different direction. And when we have this kind of complex operation, we see that it works perfectly. They are perfectly well coordinated. The communication between faction works perfectly, meaning that beyond the fact that the Israeli government claimed to have killed something like 14,000 Hamas fighter, which, by the way, was more or less contradicted, but that was at the end of last year when you had all these heavy bombardment and things like that. The Israeli command or Israeli officials said that only something like between 1,000 and 2,000 Hamas fighters were killed. So we have here, nobody is able to verify those figures, but I think the figure of 14,000 Hamas fighters is highly exaggerated, and probably it's a fraction of this figure that is true. The fact of the matter is that we see that despite having killed a couple of, I mean, a couple, maybe several thousand Hamas fighters or Palestinian fighters, the resistance continues to work perfectly. We see that new equipment arrives in the Gaza Strip. We see that the combatant use the equipment, are perfectly trained for that. They're perfectly trained for ambush operation. They're perfectly trained for guerrilla operation. So we are in a situation where, in fact, the Israeli forces look uh, inadapted for this kind